Oh boy, I am feeling fresh in my new freaking Freedom shirt here. We're so happy to have this shirt up and ready for you guys. Do check it out in the link in the description below. Definitely appreciate all you guys' support. Now, I have a huge surprise for you here. We are deep in this S10 build. All right, so this is Jeff and Mike from JSM Machine and Fabrication. These guys make a special suspension kit so that we can turn our S10 into a handling beast. So the guys from JSM specialize in the side tie stuff, and as we kind of spoke about before, I'd come from the side tie stuff, and pretty much this is going to be our, as you said,
side tie with some new technology.
Heck yeah! So we're going to optimize everything there, and these guys have the package of what's going to be able to make us be able to put all the power to the ground. So tell me a little bit about what we have here. What makes you guys special about this?
So on the rear, we go ahead and replace all your leaf spring with a 3-link. And one reason we went to the 3-link is to avoid the gas tank problem. If you go to a 4-link, you're forced to go to a fuel cell.
So yeah, we have some obvious problems that would hinge right on that mount right there. Okay.
So by going to 3-link, we put that top link right up through here. Yep. And we still get the adjustability and the performance of a 4-link.
Gotcha.
But from a road handling standpoint, it's actually better because we get more articulation.
Yeah, yeah.
By adding the Watts link instead of a panhard bar,
gotcha,
we have no side-to-side movement.
Yeah, so we get the articulation like this. If we had the 4, is what you were saying, you wouldn't be able to kind of adjust.
You get a little bit more binding on a 4. With a 3, it's very smooth and free.
Gotcha.
So now it allows your sway bar to work and the springs and shocks to do their job.
Very
so
cool.
On the shocks, in this setup, we've got the Viking Pro Touring valving. So you've got, what, 19 positions of compression and 22 rebound.
Okay, so yeah, so the Viking adjustable shocks up there. So those are double, actually they're all double on the Viking shocks.
All adjustable.
I see you're representing Viking pretty hard right there.
Yeah, well, it's the only shock we use. So.
Awesome.
We've had great luck with Viking. And never had a problem. And we modify the front shocks to run a smaller spring. That allows us to get through with that all-wheel drive setup.
You get a mount location for your coilovers, so we can do away with the torsion bars.
Ah, yes.
Which is the majority of the weight in the front suspension comes from those torsion bars. Once we take those out, these coil springs take the place of your shock, the torsion bar, and they just really free up a lot of space, and they eliminate a ton of weight. Plus, you now have control of how quickly the tire is moving up and down off the ground, in and out of a turn, so you're going to get more grip to the front that way by being able to dial in and keep the tires flat to the contact.
Now, what kind of weight we would be saving on a side tie, for example?
I think overall kit, I think we figured it at 175 pound savings between the front and the rear.
Wow. That's way more than I would have expected.
You got to realize that one spring pack in the rear weighs almost as much as our entire kit.
Holy
These springs
crap,
are so heavy on these trucks. And again, that's unsprung weight we're getting rid of.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm a huge fan of like shedding, unsprung
That's
weight.
the weight you feel.
That's awesome. I can't wait, man. That actually makes me a ton more excited. That's awesome.
Had anybody yet riding one with a 3-link that didn't just come out smiling? It's a totally different vehicle.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
So when you take a 4-wheel drive lifted truck and you lower it, which is what all this stuff is designed for lowering, the ball joint angles now are out, so you're going to go through ball joints real quick. Ball joint in the center of that travel, you don't want it bottomed out.
Gotcha.
And then when you hit suspension, it's bottoming out even further.
The important thing to remember is that these trucks are built on a 4-wheel drive chassis with 4-wheel drive A-arms, which are made for a set ride height. When you lower them, your ball joint angle goes extremely up, so your ball joints are already completely maxed out at road height. So every time you hit a bump, you're stressing your ball joint.
The length of the A-arm is still the same, so you can use a stock axle length and all that. You can use all this stock spindle, or if you got an aftermarket spindle that bolted on the stock, all that will fit.
All the parts are interchangeable with stock. When you need new bushings, you order them for an S10. You don't order them for some custom application. This is all parts. Our kit will accept any part you can get at any part store.
Really, really nice. I like that fresh powder coat. Can't wait. So these guys are down here for a couple days, and they're going to be humping it. We had spoken on the phone a couple times, and I said, hey, I want this thing freaking slammed, and we're going to put some wide tires on it and all that. And you had some really interesting information now. You said we can go to the...
You can go all the way to the bump stop.
Okay, and we're probably even going to cut the bump stop in half, right?
In half.
All right.
A little bit more travel there.
So that guy right there is going to get probably somewhere in there. If we went too low, do we lose some of our well, adjustability.
You're going to lose some suspension travel. The shock's going to accommodate it all the way to the bump stop.
So we were kicking around the idea of, you know, I was like, maybe we should run like a 315 in the front or a 345 in the back. And then you're like, man, it's probably a better idea to keep it square. Now, why is that?
So on this platform, they have a big problem of understeer. That's because you're very heavy on the front. You got no weight in the back. A lot of guys like to run the bigger tires. Understeer happens because you don't have enough traction on the back, or you have too much in the rear.
Gotcha.
So the way we combat that is, the best thing is all 4 tires are the same. We run a softer spring in the front that gives that front planted a little bit more.
Okay.
Run a bigger sway bar in the back, and we're discussing maybe moving some engine weight back, or as much as we can weight to get back.
Trying to centralize it as much as possible.
Trying to get that 50-50.
Yeah.
And that'll help with that understeer.
Now, what is a stock side tie as far as front to rear weight distribution?
They're probably 65-70% front.
Wow.
And 30% rear, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Wow.
It depends if you're talking cyclone or typhoon.
Okay.
But I mean, for example, we run a 500 rate spring in the front. We're running a 200 in the rear.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's quite a bit of difference in spring rate.
The nice thing is, with a spring that's soft, this will still ride fairly comfortably on the street.
I like what I'm hearing.
If you're jolting on the street, you're not going to handle very good.
Yeah, you've got too much springing at that point.
Gotcha.
You want that suspension to grip the road, not bounce over the road.
So guys, this being our 4x4 S10 frame that we got, we'd assumed that was our 8.5-inch diff right there, and turns out that it wasn't. So a big disappointment there. I had talked to these gentlemen and we had thought that was the right one, and we can see when we line all this up that the bolts do not work. So, however, they do have this adaptation for this diff if you want to. So if you guys are not trying to put a ridiculous amount of power down, might be able to get away with this diff. This is the stock diff.
With the all-wheel drive, you do get away with a little bit more than you normally would.
Yeah,
We've seen
we're kind of
700 pretty easily on the stock rear.
okay. That's pretty significant. That's a decent amount
With
of
the
power.
all-wheel drive.
Yeah, with all-wheel drive.
With all-wheel drive, okay, because again, we're sharing the load between the front and the rear, as opposed to having the rear take that entire shock. So we're going to be searching for a new diff very shortly. We might not be able to get it by the time these guys have to leave town. All right, so I am not savvy on suspension stuff at all. I mean, I know how to make a normal stock car go down the drag strip and do a few things to make that work, but these guys here, they got a plan, and apparently this thing is a Watts link. I wouldn't have been able to tell you that necessarily, but so tell us about a Watts link.
So a Watts link over a Panhard bar keeps that rear end centered as the suspension travels. It also controls our roll center. And I think once we get this thing installed, we can go over some of the geometry behind it and why we picked the Watts link and why we mounted it the way we did, and how we've got the instant center and some of the other geometry set up for all-wheel drive specifically.
Now, are some of the Fords have the Watts link mount to the diff cover, or is that what
There
that is?
are other brands, even aftermarket, that mount the Watts link to the diff itself.
Okay.
It's nice
So-
for packaging. It makes for an easy to install kit. The difference is the roll center then stays in the center line of the axle where the Watts link is mounted, instead of with the weight of the truck, which is why we run a bracket across the top and mount your roll center to your body, so you feel it in the steering wheel and in the seat, and it's not out here with the rear end that you're never going to.
It should make a better driver experience, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and it's more predictable for the driver.
Okay.
So you're not having a roll center change on you as that suspension's articulating. That roll center's staying with the body of the vehicle.
I like the sound of that. I was under one of your cars and it does.
Convict does have a Watts link, yeah.
All right, Mr. Jeff, those are junk. It's not going to do the job. We need bigger. So those guys are coming out, and we're going to replace them with something of which we don't know yet, but bigger and better. You guys are in the middle of starting to tear down everything, and I can't wait to see what that looks like in there. That's going to look a billion times better than that hunk of junk right there. All right, this gas tank has to go. We are putting a 20-gallon fuel cell in there. So this thing's coming out. And that is how you delete a torsion bar.
I can tell you, it's a complete right side suspension weight of 20 pounds.
Parts on the ground. That's progress. All right, guys, our pile has grown. There is most definitely a lot of weight, and just about everything unnecessary that we can take off at the moment is gone. A lot of cutting, a lot of unbolting. So we're down to pretty much bare bones from here on out. Pretty much just assembly. All right, these guys have been working hard and we are making some progress. This is kind of our mock-up stage here. I had my dad's wheels lying around. Yeah, direct bolt-on. We actually have a little bit smaller of a wheel than I'd like to have on there. That's a 275. Looks a little bit stretched, but we're getting the idea what this thing is shaping up to look like. Dude, those Viking coilovers look absolutely sick in there. Georgie is in the porting shed working on the heads. We are going to possibly put the bed on here, and we have some progress being made with our motor plate. Everything is really stripped down to the bare bones. We would like to get out probably the... Getting a little rowdy out there. Also looking for ideas for brakes. If you guys have any ideas, we're possibly looking at maybe some 5th gen Camaro brakes. They should be obtainable and a very decent size on a lighter weight chassis. That with an aggressive pad, I think we could be able to make this thing stop really, really aggressively. That's got me excited looking at this little thing coming together here. I was just talking with Laz and I almost thought that we used the wrong side motor plate because the cylinder head is offset a little bit and you can see the obvious areas where that needs to be relieved. The other motor plate from ICT does have that.
Got water pump holes, I didn't use the wrong plate.
Yeah. So guys, if you're used to seeing the Cathedral Port LS stuff, this new LTs have a much larger volume and that intake runner will flow a lot more airflow. So this is our high pressure pump and we don't know yet if this is exactly the same pump as what's in the LT. The LT4 is a bigger pump externally, you can see it. Just like on our diesel, we went from the stock pump with our Exergy pump to the 10 millimeter, basically a wider piston as a bored out pump. The same type of thing can be said for the LT4 pump. So the LT4 pump is bigger on the outer body of it, and you can see that it flows a lot more fuel. Very, very obvious to the eye. We should be able to make a good amount of power with our injectors from Fuel Injector Connection, 140 pound-an-hour LT4s. That thing should be able to make some steam. All right, so guys, this is our Caprice tranny. This is what is going to be going in that very, very shortly as that project comes together. So we did have a backup TR6060 here that we could use as mock-up, and that is going to be something to look forward to as well. One of the other big problems that we have is steering shaft. We're going to try and figure out what we can do, but that is why we're mocking everything up right now and seeing what the shortcomings are, what needs to be modified. Sometime we're going to have to get where George is porting in here and singing his heart out. It is awesome. So we're going to get a little update on how he's porting the heads for the 5.3. I didn't scare you.
What's going on, pal?
Just want to see how this thing's coming, man.
Oh man,
I'm so glad you got to hit it up real fast. I was like, dang man, heck yeah, I'm making it happen. Open her up, making some metal fly. I like it. We're gonna have what, somewhere about 8 to 10 hours in them, you think?
Well, I mean, like I said, the 5.3s go really fast. Like I've been doing this for probably like, I don't know, what, 2 hours maybe? 3 hours each, 4 hours each maybe?
Hell yeah. Yeah, you said the metal was softer.
Yeah, it's definitely,
is it
definitely softer?
Definitively? Wow.
Like right now I'm doing it and it's 100% it's softer.
Now, so again, for naturally aspirating, we wouldn't necessarily say, hey, go gasket match. We almost never do that. But because we're trying to flow massive amounts of airflow, we want to make some power. All right, so we got an interesting little comparison here of the valve sizes. So this one right here is an LT4, and we can see that it is an obvious larger difference. Now the bore on this 5.3 cylinder head is a lot smaller than the 6.2. Yeah, about the 127, okay. And then our intake valve on this, oh man, you can see the crud build up on that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a direct injection problem. The way you fix that, methanol. Wow, that's a lot smaller. Holy moly, we might have to throw some valves in there. This is the LT4. So the LT4 was a 1.59 on the exhaust, and this was a 1.55. So we are choking it just a little bit, but I think we can do very, very well with that. I think we might just optimize it, leave it the way that it is, and then when we go to a bigger motor, we'll get the bigger head. What we're doing here with porting this cylinder head is we are going to unshroud it so we can see where the head gasket goes to right there. What we're going to do is we're going to open this up, try and help this area breathe a little bit more, alleviate any sort of obstruction whatsoever so that we can help this thing flow a little bit better. Most of the work is done on the short side radius here on the turn, and this is the short side radius. That would be the longer side. This is the bowl. Valve guide goes right in there, but this is all kind of the bowl area. So the air speeds up faster and faster and faster as we get to the area where it is crossing the valve. So the bowl is extremely important, and the highest speed of air is right there on the short side radius. So when you work that, alleviate any sort of restrictions, smooth everything out, and really try and make it as pretty much aerodynamic as possible, we pick up power. Same thing can be said about the exhaust. We're going to unshroud that a little bit. We can kind of see, just touch that a little bit, but that's as we're getting through there. When we finish it all up, that will be super clean. She'll be able to flow a lot more airflow, more safely, less likely to spark knock. But that is a major part of trying to make a bunch of power. All right, so guys, so many times I remember seeing frames like this that are kind of slammed on the ground, and they look like they might have been in a resto mod or really, really low. And I mean, that's pretty low. When we compare it to that right there, they're telling me about 7 inches of difference from the bump stop to the frame. So I'm gonna do a little measurement here. So we're gonna go right about mid love handle right there on this one, and we'll see how high that is when we put it on over here. Pretty significant right there. So we were right here. That is, that's every bit of 7 inches right there. That is very substantial. And it definitely looks a hell of a lot meaner. The transformation here.
Okay, that makes sense.
That is definitely getting there.
Pounds of motor in the front, it might be level.
Yeah, we'll be able to lower that down. So obviously there's no weight whatsoever up front. We should be able to get that all nailed down. We also do have a little bit more adjustability. Basically the bump stops. That is getting there. Yeah, dude, this is gonna be sick when we lay that motor in there too. And then we're like, whoo! I'm gonna get goosebumps here in a minute.
It'll be a monster.
It's gonna be freaking awesome. Watch the paint. This thing was flawless before I brought it to you guys. That's a ton lower. Dude, that's got a pretty good look to it right there. That alone made a pretty substantial difference though. Oh, look at the gap. And look what it took.
2 fat guys. 3.
Dude, that's got a good look to it, man. If we have some really nicer, more modern wheels on that thing, it's gonna be silly nasty. And like that, we're lower. All right, so the guys said that we'll be able to run a universal bump stop. It'll drill and thread through here. That will be able to give us our max suspension travel. It's getting closer. You can almost taste it. Look at that. So this engine is sitting back quite a ways back farther, and what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to cut the firewall and the cap. Your official let it rip tater chip.
Oh, definitely. We're gonna get this thing out of here. We got a motor to go in right here. What he's talking about is we took a measurement of the motor plate on the frame,
Right.
to the bed, and we just transferred that over here, and that put us where the back of the motor is gonna be about here. So instead of cutting all the way down and under, we might be able to just take it here and go across.
All right, so the fact that we are cutting the firewall, I wanted to throw this out there right here, right now, that is not 100% necessary in order to do this swap. We are doing it because we want this thing to have the engine all the weight as low as possible and as central as possible. And I have no problem doing that because this thing is so torn apart as is, and we can just kind of modify as we want. We're trying to make this thing as bad as we possibly can. And since we're already here, it's no big deal. It's maybe a couple more steps. It's not like completely re-engineering anything. Methodology. Years of being a pro.
Something like that.
Yeah, I like how you use the extension of the
Level?
yeah, the level with the knife. That was pretty savvy right there.
Alright, I'm just gonna wing it from there.
man.
Lost the flame.
Lost the flame pedal there. Dang. Squirrel's gonna be pissed. We got our new AC system installed here. So we have a clearance problem right there. And where else? Was it on the other side as well, on the same bolt? Okay. So we're gonna have to widen the tunnel a little bit. Yeah, so we can, well, in the Miata, we kind of sectioned it and then spaced it, right? So same type thing though. Man, that is definitely back there. Hey, initially when we had the turbos on there, where they were really far forward, is that where they were? That might actually work out really good if the turbos are right there. Okay, so yeah,
that, the center of that, good 8.5.
Yeah, about 8.5 inches. Wow. 10 inches into the firewall. That's all.
Looking for a couple more.
Talk about some weight distribution. I think it's going to really work out. Yeah. God only knows how far we're going to take this as far as where we're going to put a coolant reservoir and radiator. I mean, we have enough space up here to do whatever we want now, but the main point is we want to keep the weight more centralized. And we had also kind of bounced the idea off of having kind of a V-shaped heat exchanging with the intercooler being on the bottom side and the radiator on the top side. But there's so many rabbit holes that we can kind of chase here, but man, it's exciting. I knew a guy down the road here. This is a few years back. Actually, this is circa 2007. Okay, he completely cut apart a brand new 2007 Vet and actually made it a twin turbo, but it was in the car. So it was a rear mount inside the car, twin 60-something millimeters, and he did not have the partition in there. But he was so concerned with weight that he actually had the fuel tank running as an air-to-water intercooler for the turbo. That's pretty crazy that you're literally preheating your fuel, but you're using that as the heat exchanger. But again, imagine wrapping your head around conserving so much weight that you don't even want to run, you know, a water tank for that. So unfortunately it didn't totally work, but I think that if we really put our heads to it, enough people and enough time and resources, we could make something like that happen. Hey guys, at the end of the episode, we were definitely all just about out of gas. I mean, the guys from JS Machine and Fab have just absolutely crushed it. I mean, they really did a lot in a short amount of time. Well, next episode, we're going to finish that up. We got a whole bunch more stuff coming, but we are really making some killer pace with this thing. We do have a deadline, and hopefully we can make everything happen. So guys, stay tuned. God bless you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Oh. What are you doing? Come here, baby dog. Get him, Jericho. Get him, Pete.